So greetings everyone. It looks like we are live. How are you doing today, Vandel and David? And Versan unfortunately couldn't join us, but he'll be here next week. So how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm having a great day. Sunday. It's beautiful. Right now in Texas, it's like 104 degrees. It's like roasting. So, but other than that, the week has been great. I'm kind of excited to see what this next week holds for this space for sure. I think a lot of interesting things are happening right now. And I'm just really anticipating something big is going to kind of burst on the scene. And it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see something within the next couple of weeks here come down.
I agree. Yep.
We are very glad to have another episode of The Turning Point. We're going to have a few surprises here and there, some changes, but
Mm.
I think it's going to be a very positive outcome, and we are very happy to have such a large audience that is watching us nowadays. So it's an honor to be here with you, folks. Always great. And we could start by addressing something very polemic that is happening right now. And through the weekend, I have seen a lot of people quite concerned with, I think, this specific post from David Schwartz was published something like 1.5 years ago, maybe a bit more. And some issues were raised about what was mentioned there. And I would like to hear your thoughts on that, David, and also Vandel, and how you guys think that's related to NDAs, non-disclosure agreements.
Mm. Well, the gist of what I got out of that is David is basically coming out there and saying, well, listen, to give clarity on my prior statements kind of thing. Now, I oftentimes find that it's very interesting when someone gives clarity on prior statements, right? Because, it's almost as if, they want to throw something out there and they understand. I mean, David Schwartz is a brilliant man, and I know he understands how the community would have reacted to his original statement there, where he said, look, it just can't be cheap. And he gives his, if you're sending $1 million and you're utilizing XRP, and if XRP is $1 and you want to send, you're going to have to send a million XRP. But when we think of XRP's utility and how it will, literally send billions around the world and stuff like that, and there's only 100 billion XRP, obviously, he was saying, hey, a $1 XRP won't cut it, because the amount that will be required to move it around the world. So now he's coming in and he's saying, well, that doesn't necessarily mean the price. I mean, really what he's focusing on, and I look at it like this way, a lot of cryptographers, when they look at this digital asset space, to them, price is not the main driver of interest. The main driver of interest is how we transition into the utilization of this new digital economy and these digital assets. And I really do believe that David's motivation there primarily is as a cryptographer. He's interested in seeing its utility being played out. Now, for him, he's not really focusing on price, but of course, a lot of people are looking to these individuals like David Schwartz, of course, Garlinghouse, different ones, to kind of throw it out there as to what, because they put so much weight on what they say. But remember this, neither David Schwartz, Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, or any of these people have some sort of special way to see into the future that we don't have. There is no crystal ball. And so his, take on things is as speculative as anybody else's in terms of price. Now, when you look at global utility, one of the things I would like to point out is it's been recently disclosed, and this was in the court case that this came out as a disclosure, that Ripple has over 1,700 NDAs with various financial institutions with regards to XRP. That is right out of the court case. Now, that's a pretty massive deal. Now, we know that David has come out and publicly acknowledged that he has been rebuked in the past for any kind of statements or comments that he's had to make, or he has made where, it's kind of like, hey, they've told him, look, you can't do this, da, 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 especially when the case was going on. And I think he was very careful about some of the things, and he would drop, these kind of hints. Remember some of these cryptic tweets that he would be throwing out there and leaving it up to the community ability to interpret and stuff like that. So I kind of think, because we're in this phase where now we got 56 days or 55 days that the SEC could turn around and still appeal, some of the elements in this case, whether they will or they won't, who knows? And further to that, even if they do, in my estimation, it ultimately will not have a humongous impact. XRP, even after the lawsuit was dropped, went from 17.48 cents to $1.97, a 1,200% return in just 4 months. So I don't think we'll miss out too much in a big way. I really don't. And not only that, since the decision has been made, XRP will, even if it is appealed, it has to wait to the end of that appeal before if it even did lose designation as a not being a security in the secondary market. So I really don't know. But to focus on what I think David is doing here, I think he's kind of covering tracks in a way. And I think he's kind of like smoothing out the feathers and stuff like that. And I think he's looking at it from the point of view like a cryptographer would. It's about ultimately getting these things out in the marketplace and utilized on a global, massive, adoptive scale. That's what I think he's doing. And I can give other commentary about where I think we're going here, but I'll let Vandell, pick it up from there.
Yeah, I'll pick up from where you left off. I totally agree with you. And the thing is, when it comes to public statements, whether it's from executives or individuals such as David Schwartz, they have a lot of non-disclosure agreements that they're bound to. Mm-hmm. And specifically individuals like that who are playing a role in creating and shaping world-changing innovation and technology, partnerships with central banks, just working on big things that are disrupting sectors of the economy, they're bound by non-disclosure agreements. So why is that important to remember? It's because of the nature of their business and what they're doing on a global scale, they have to sometimes withhold information or misdirect information for the public. And this is important. They have to do that. And regardless of how high their credibility is, and I think Joel Katz is a genius. That's my personal opinion. I don't take anyone's word at face value, especially executives and people on that world stage that are bound by countless non-disclosure agreements. And the thing is, things can change, and strategic misdirection is very common when you're operating on that level.
I want to throw something out there because I think you're definitely onto that, that piece of it where, they can't be as transparent as what you think they can be because, they are, look, Elon Musk will come out there and he was out there pumped Doge, right? And Doge went. And then he said something else on Saturday and Doge dropped and things like that. This guy, Elon Musk, was then faced with the possibility of being sued by the SEC for influencing markets. Now, the SEC has just dealt with a big, massive case these guys have gone through, and they know darn well that, hey, look, they could be if David Schwartz was to get out there and start pumping on and on and on and this, that, you would probably see the SEC going out there knowing that he has great influence in this community, that they would probably go out and try to sue him personally for influencing the market in that way, especially considering he's a big holder of XRP in and of himself. I think ultimately what we're dealing with here is somebody that is literally trying to kind of come out there and smooth the waters because, he has said some very controversial comments in the past, and there was no follow-up when he made those comments to bring all kinds of clarity. No, he doubled down on them. Now we get come on. So to me, that's kind of how I look at it.
Can I add one thing before Ido takes off?
Yep.
What you said earlier is extremely important to pay attention to, was the timing of the narrative shift. Narratives are taught in behavioral economics for politicians. I mean, this is a common strategy to give people to misdirect information for security purposes and give people to a string to attach and make sense of things that seem complex. So the timing is crucial, I think. I don't think it's a coincidence that the
Yeah.
narrative shifted. But
Right.
yeah, based on what you said, David, 100%. Go ahead, Ido.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to locate a tweet here that I wanted to share from David Schwartz. But anyways, if I find later, I'll share the screen with you. But the point I'm trying to make is, first, we don't expect a cryptographer to come and say word by word what their plans are, right? So there is no doubt David Schwartz is one of the most brilliant minds out there when it comes to crypto, one of the co-architects of the XRP ledger, an early Bitcoin developer. Well, he has the whole set of skills, even to be someone just beyond David Schwartz. And I will not get into details here about the speculations on him being part of the organization that is Satoshi Nakamoto. However, people are trying to take his word by word, okay? And here are some comments that he has made on the past. So one of them is that he came out and suddenly one day he said that for him there would be no April's Fool Day, so he would tweet every day as if it is April's Fool. I have the screenshot of this tweet, and he openly said that. Second, he already stated, and this is no speculation, okay? It's like not me, my opinion, do I think he has an NDA or not? He actually said that, and I have the proof that he has an NDA with the National Security Agency, right? So here we should start to understand that even if he wanted to tell us, he wouldn't be able to tell us what he really thinks. And then you have this bunch of people, I don't want to use negative adjectives here, but that are coming out and say, oh my God, he said this. David Schwartz said XRP is not ISO 20022. Are you really taking his word by word, or even further? With all respect to David Schwartz, okay, but I wouldn't even take David Schwartz as a financial advice. You know that he has sold all his Ethereum before it actually went to $100 to install solar panels on his house. So that's quite funny. But I'm just trying to make a point here that as or David here said, not David Schwartz, but that he doesn't have a crystal ball as well. So we don't know to which degree he really understands the financial system as a whole, or he just have a more redundant understanding which is based on blockchain technology. Does David have a broader perspective? I don't know. I never spoke to him in regards to this matter. I spoke to him about perhaps in the past the capabilities of the XRP ledger. Does David Schwartz understands geopolitical situations? Does he understand the macro perspective from economical standpoint? Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to make people see that you will not take every word he says and literally take a screenshot and use that as the ultimate proof. And whenever you want to get something more, let's say with less censorship of ideas, I recommend everyone to go and check the old articles of Ripple. They used it to be far more transparent. Before Ripple became so widely adopted, so widely known as today, they used it to have a lot of articles presenting the vision of Ripple, and Ripple was far more transparent. That's for many reasons. Nowadays, we have the SEC lawsuit. I remember in Paris, I met many employees from Ripple, amazing people, but they were very cautious, even in the words they were using, even let's say to have a picture together. On, they would tell me, be very careful with the language you're going to use, because of course the SEC was and is still coming after Ripple. So the employees, people who are actually working for Ripple, have to be very careful. So you have two things right here. You have NDAs, and one of them is David Schwartz with the NSA, and then you have the whole legal perspective with the SEC, with someone that holds large amounts of XRP. And of course, if he's going to give out their statements, actually, I would be more suspicious, right? If David Schwartz was on a spending 24 hours a day trying to convince us to get on XRP. That would
Mhm.
make me raise an eyebrow and see, is XRP the right one? If he would be, let's say that David Schwartz is invited to the XRP convention with Donald Trump or something like that, where they are openly saying, look, David Schwartz saying live, I never selling my XRPs and all of these things. Well, I would get slightly suspicious, but actually he's playing the opposite role. And I do understand. I just pointed out for all of the reasons, so I
Yeah.
don't have absolutely nothing wrong with him doing so. And I think he's doing the right thing, but I just wish people to stop paying attention so closely to every
Well,
single
it's yeah.
small detail.
It's
And it
food for the fudsters, right? It's food for the fudsters. They are just going to eat this up. All the Bitcoin maxis are going to utilize this. Our channels are going to get plastered with all kinds of comments. Oh, David Schwartz said this, da 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 da. Well, you know what? David Schwartz has said a lot of things. David Schwartz has been reprimanded for saying certain things, kind of like told to hold the horses back. And as much as I love him, and by the way, you see that little hat right over here in the corner here, well, I'm looking at myself backwards, but you see my little hat back there. That's the hat that David Schwartz signed. I mean, I love this guy. I think he's an absolute amazingly brilliant guy and truly just one of the founders of the XRP ledger, like you were saying. But the thing is, the guy is also has, he has his own focus and he has responsibility and there's motivations behind all of what we're seeing. And this is where it's so vitally important that people are getting out there and they're really understanding these things for what they are in the future. They're not out there making decisions, all their confidence, 100% of their confidence is based on someone else's conviction. Because I'll tell you what, that is one surefire way to get wrecked. And if your emotions are all tied into it and someone comes out and throws a statement out that, or a fudster gets on there, and you just literally capitulate your entire position and stuff because you're afraid because of what somebody said, David Schwartz said, or how it was interpreted or whatever. And then all of a sudden you watch this thing move and miss out because in 2017, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of folks there that rode that thing and then they just got the point. And all the FUD capitulated. And then one day, pow, that thing took off like an absolute rocket ship and transformed the fortunes of people, probably for generations, for some people that were willing to stick it out. Most people, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, they were shaken out. They couldn't stake it out, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I just think you're right. I think Vandell, we have I just think this is the narrative that we're hearing right now. Timing's everything. And I would agree with you 100%. You can't put all your eggs in a basket just because it's David Schwartz or even if it's Brad Garlinghouse or whomever it is. That's the way I look at it. You're muted.
Yes, I agree, and I love what Ito said as well.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, let's say David Schwartz participated in the Bitcoin conference. If he was promoting directly or indirectly pushing XRP, that would be extremely questionable from anybody that knows how these guys operate. Because most of the time, whether it's billionaires, executives, insiders." They will never give you the gemstone. Typically, what they'll do is they'll share that later once it's said and done or price appreciation has taken place. But so that's, yeah, I mean, it's so obvious that they're trying to push people into Bitcoin. That's why they had the Bitcoin conference. You had these politicians show up, and that's the narrative that's being pushed. And then now you have this narrative of, like you said, him trying to cover his tracks from previous statements he's made in the past. But yes, what I was saying is what Ito said is 100% correct. If he was promoting it, encouraging people to get in constantly, and it was, being publicized with positive sentiment, that would be extremely questionable on my end. I'd look at it like, okay, they really want us in this. What are they not? What are they not talking about? And that's how I look at Bitcoin too. So, yeah, that's how I see it. And non-disclosure agreements. Even David Schwartz has publicly stated at a conference, I think, with PolySign, that they were in stealth mode and they can't talk about certain things. But I really want to tell you guys, but I can't. So yes, he's under numerous he's bound by numerous non-disclosure agreements because, I mean, for God's sakes, look at what they're working on and who they're working on it with. That tells you everything right there.
Right there.
Yeah, it's a big club and
Yep.
they're working on big things. So yeah, take it like that.
Yep. Edo, are you
there,
I don't
Edo?
know if you're froze or if not sure what's happening there, but just to take on that, with respect to that, oftentimes I kind of look at it, if you were actually able to just kind of like take a look at the future and where we're going, it does not really take much of a genius to go out there, peel back some of the layers of what's happening in our wide world, the relationships that are being formed between Ripple and the IMF, the BIS, all that kind of stuff, how the XRP ledger is literally being employed. I mean, you got US treasuries right now that are being tokenized on the XRP ledger. And that in and of itself tells you. So absolutely, they can say all they want, but and it comes right back to it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to follow their advice. I'm following what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're laying the infrastructure for an absolute new system. We can see it. It's as clear as the noses on our faces. And so for me, I'm not even shaken up a bit, one iota from what, I hear about these kind of things,
Do you remember the XRP, well, on Ripple's previous, on their website, long time ago in the past, they had a interesting paragraph there, and it said, most importantly, we remain more committed than ever to the simple goal of making XRP the world's reserve digital currency. And then that was removed later on. So
yeah,
from day
that is
one,
an amazing statement. That is a genuinely an amazing statement. And they had a bunch of those things out there. I mean, we had, look, I was at the XRP Vegas conference 2024, and I went to the, I think it was like the digital asset, or Chamber of Commerce, and they had this special dinner. And, someone had invited me and paid for that ticket. And by the way, these tickets were almost $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. And a big shout out to the guy who gave it to me. It's Nick, and really was a great blessing for me to go. But needless to say, the thing is this: Brad Garlinghouse literally came on and he said, look, if people think that Ripple has backed away from XRP, they're missing the plot. They're missing the plot. Now that I recorded that, it was picked up by XRP Drops. It went viral on Twitter, that clip. And then I went out and I posted the full clip, because they took it down. They, brought it down to like maybe a few seconds or whatever. But the idea was like you had Brad Garlinghouse right out there, and they were not backing away from the utilization of XRP and how they were going to use it in transforming the way financial transactions work in the world. So, this idea that you're going to be able to manage with just 100 billion XRP, and we know it's being utilized as a bridge asset and transferring value. Look, if you took every XRP right now, if you the whole 100 billion, you're only talking about $50 billion. Do you know how many multiple billions and trillions of dollars of value are moved across borders daily? And David Swartz's original comments is right. If it comes to its full utilization, it cannot be cheap because there's not enough XRP to handle the volume at 50 cents, a dollar, $10, maybe even $100. We're talking it would take some serious numbers. And this is where a lot of these folks came out with the whole $10,000 XRP. Because if one XRP is worth 10 grand and you got 100 billion of them, well, now you're able to move greater amounts of value, right? Will we see that in our lifetime? I don't know. But the point is this: it's impossible for the network to work the way in which they are saying they want it to work as a bridge asset, transferring value around the wide world to the volumes to replace the SWIFT system. Look, remember, wasn't it Naveen Gupta who said, we're not here to make a dent in the, we're here to literally, take over the financial system, or we're not going to, or we're not here for anything. Remember that statement he said on stage?
Yeah.
So do you think that that's changed in one incy teensy bit. Do you think they spent like what, 250 some million dollars fighting a case so that they think a $125 million fine is a victory and they're going to pay that fine if they don't have any intention of moving these ecosystems forward? We know that's not the case. So, you know, when you hear these statements coming out, it cannot function at 50, 60 cents. It just can't. I think David Schwartz is speaking from the precision of a cryptographer where he's looking at the utilization. He's not even thinking about price. I think that's where it's at. And to me, it does, you know, and especially with what you just pointed out there of prior Ripple statements, it doesn't mix. It's like Sesame Street. One of these things doesn't add up with the other.
Can I add one more thing before Edo goes? Is that okay? Okay. It's regarding that statement. So this statement, I'll reiterate it again. This was by Ripple. It was on their website many years ago, and it was very clear. And it stated, most importantly, we remain more committed than ever to the simple goal of making XRP the world's reserve digital currency. Later on, they removed that. And that's when the narrative shifted, even from people that were huge advocates telling the world, like Pompliano, wait till they hear about XRP. And then the narrative did a 180. All of a sudden, it's promoting indirectly or directly, promoting Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And what's interesting is that statement that was made by Ripple, a digital world reserve currency. Okay, Wikipedia's definition for a reserve currency often is seen as a hard or safe haven currency and is held large amounts by governments and institutions for international transactions, investments, and the global economy. That's a world reserve currency. And they are trying to be a digital world reserve currency. That's what their statement was. Yeah. So interesting right there. At the end of the day, I don't think anything has changed. The fundamentals still remain the same.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, sorry guys, my connection dropped before I had to reset the Wi-Fi here. I hope now it's working. But yeah, I heard, although the connection was not working properly, I was hearing what you were saying. And I love the statement that you brought, Pandel. So I have the screenshot for that, by the way. And a lot of people are failing to understand, because one thing would to be this statement on Ripple's website, but in the other hand, if there wouldn't to be technological advancements in regards to XRP. Now, the fact that they removed the statement, but actually XRP is really moving on that way, if we really understand what's happening behind the scenes with Ripple's escrow, with Ripple making NDAs with virtually every single government in the world. You have the Russian government, which successfully tested on the XRP ledger. You have on the West, the Bank of France, which already came out and said that the XRP ledger works far better than Ethereum, for instance, for a digital euro. And you have Ripple working closely with the United States, where XRP is the only digital asset with regulatory clarity. So from every angle that you analyze, XRP is getting closer and closer to become a world reserve currency. Now, the same people who are complaining that David Schwartz actually has stated some of the things that he did, they are also perhaps saying, oh, but look, wait a minute, Ripple removed that from the website. And so what? I mean, what is the importance if Ripple removed a statement from the website, if on contrary to that, they are making everything that they can to ensure that actually XRP is a world reserve currency? They're just doing it in a more quiet way. And I would be suspicious if they would go out and say to everyone, you should buy XRP now because tomorrow is going to be a world reserve currency. And that's actually quite the opposite. They are trying to buy as much XRPs as they can. And that's exactly when they dropped the SEC lawsuit that the price has dropped substantially. But you go down and you track the big wallets, the 0.1% top wallets. Interestingly enough, these wallets were purchasing large sums of XRP at 16, 20, and 24 cents, while the retail investors were in panic and they were just selling, selling, and selling. So you want to really follow the money. You want to follow what financial institutions are doing. You want to pay attention to the Bank of International Settlements, to IMF, to the meetings that are held in private, which sometimes we get a glimpse. You can get access to footages, to videos that are not really meant for us to actually watch it. And I have a very interesting one. It was a presentation in Italy for bankers, and I have also that on my channel, where they were discussing which blockchains would actually thrive. And they said, and that was not something that we were supposed to get access. I find that file by mistake, by chance, and they were literally telling us that there will be a handful of blockchains that are going to remain on the long term. And if you, they had like a diagram, and on top of that, you can guess which one was there. It's the XRP ledger. In a presentation for bankers, in a private meeting between bankers, and guess what? They are talking about XRP there. They are not going out and talking to the masses, but when the bankers are meeting, they are saying, yes, this is the technology for the future. So I would argue that we should not follow the trends that are there for the public. That's exactly what the Bitcoin conference was about. You don't see the same XRP conference where you have all this information being propagated. Also, another interesting thing, in Europe, there is a payment system that is called TIPS. So it's a Target Instant Payment Settlement. I think that's how it's called. So basically, you can send money with tips from one country to the other, and that's usually settled instantly. So you don't really need to use the same IBAN system where it might take 2 or 3 days with Swift. And it comes out that I saw this account on Twitter, and someone asked them if they were using XRP. And Tips account on Twitter has answered to someone, and I have the screenshots, and they say, no, this technology is not using XRP. And then I found a presentation, again for the bankers, where you have the breakdown of Tips technology, and that's side by side within integrating the XRP Ledger technology. So how crazy is that? That the official account of Tips on Twitter is there saying, no, we are not using XRP. And when they are giving a private presentation for the bankers, and if anyone wants to have access to information, please send me a message on Twitter. I'll be more than happy to send you the PDF, and you're going to see the screenshots and everything. And you will start to ask questions. Why on private they are telling us that they are using XRP, but when someone comes in public and asks about, are you integrating XRP, they are saying no. Again, in which side of the story you want to be? You want to go for the mainstream opinions? Well, first of all, you should not be investing in XRP then. You should be actually 100% in Bitcoin. If you're following what mainstream opinions are telling you, do us a favor and go follow the CNN, go follow Michael Saylor. Well, I have so many of them that are great bringing this centralized information about Bitcoin. You should not even be listening to XRP related content. You should be studying Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the future, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good, very good point.
Go ahead,
I was going to say one of the biggest FUD that comes out, of course, a lot of times is, how Ripple is dumping XRP on the retail market, which is absolutely false. I mean, this has been around, this piece of FUD has been around so much. And, they'll use like the escrow unlocks and all this to say, oh, here it comes, they're going to dump on the market. Ripple hasn't sold any XRP to the retail market since like 2019. Ripple themselves, in fact, they have been net buyers of XRP off the retail market. And you can see that in the wallets and things like that. Yet most people, you watch the fuzzers that come out, they'll throw this information out there. Oh, how Ripple's just dumping. It's a pump and dump scam coin, on and on and on. And the fact is, if you really want the absolute truth, Ripple is not. In fact, we are seeing that there is some supply issues on various exchanges for XRP. And that is a big tell as well. So, I agree 100%. Sometimes you're hearing one narrative out there and it is completely opposite to the truth of what's going on behind the scenes. It reminds me of Kendra Hill. And for those who've been dug deep down in these rabbit holes, they'll know that name. and how she was coming out and disclosing stuff really back in the early days about what their intention was for it. Well, interesting how Kendra Hill just disappeared and never made another statement ever since those statements. And if it wasn't for the fact that you had people screenshot all that information, it would not even be available to be found today. So that says lots. Go ahead there, Bendel.
Yeah, and how Edo and mentioned Bitcoin. So people should never forget that only 11 mining pools control the entire Bitcoin network. So decentralization, this whole concept of Bitcoin's network being decentralized, is 100% controlled by whales, and it's an illusion, the decentralizing aspect of Bitcoin's network, because it's controlled by 11 mining pools, and it can easily be attacked with enough resources and money. So I think it's extremely vulnerable, even though they're trying to paint this picture that it's the one, it's the store of value. They're promoting it. It's on CNBC. They talk about it on the news. They had the Bitcoin conference. They have politicians backing it, and some of them attacking it and then later changing their narrative. This is part of the long-term agenda, I believe. I really do. So, yeah, the way I would see Bitcoin is, if you're going to participate in that, I see it as a financial instrument to make money, but that's if you can even afford a half a or one Bitcoin, because the amount of one Bitcoin is quite high in comparison to a lot of more undervalued digital assets that can make you tremendously more wealth when they do appreciate in value. So, it's not financial advice I'm giving, but I don't see Bitcoin being a store of value at all. Not at all. I don't care what they say or how high the price is. And for God's sakes, 10 years is not enough time to solidify this idea that it's been trusted. 10 years, really, brother? I mean, gold has been around for over 5,000 years, and central banks have been accumulating it net buyers since 2010. And we're going digital. So there's going to definitely be a connection there. But for 10 years, Bitcoin, that's not enough time for me to be convinced, especially as we're in the middle of this transition, given all the vulnerabilities it has, all its history, and the fact that they're promoting it makes me question it.
Yeah, interesting enough, they don't really need Bitcoin price to go up to profit out of Bitcoin, because they profit from the market fluctuations. Or even though, if you are not an institutional investor, like let's say 100 million investment managed firm, that doesn't make any sense to actually be out there holding solely Bitcoin and hoping that's going to make you rich, because the people profiting from this, they are in control of the markets. They can just bring some news in, like they did in the Trump convention, drop it instantly, 2, 3, 4, 5%. For them, that's actually millions of dollars. So they profit from the price volatility. They don't even need Bitcoin to hit $100,000 to make money. They can make far more money by dumping Bitcoin to $45,000 in like 2 days, for example. They make more money out of that than if Bitcoin would to pump it. And actually, what you said, Vandel, is 100% correct. 51% attack on Bitcoin networking could even increase Bitcoin supply to way over 21 million Bitcoin. So a lot of people even have this misconception of scarcity. Well, until when is going to be scarce? Until the mining pools come together and actually orchestrate 51% attack, which is not really hard to achieve. And by the way, it's much more complex to achieve a similar outcome on the XRP ledger than it is on Bitcoin networking. It's very funny that the people coming out and say the XRP ledger is centralized are just overlooking the technology, are overlooking the decentralization on the XRP ledger, which is very hard to achieve such an attack. You would need to gain control over 35 different validators for a period of time, let's say of 2 weeks, and you would actually need 80%, versus on Bitcoin a 51% attack that is already centralized on the mining pool. So two large mining pools are already in control of a huge portion of Bitcoin's networking. That's why I take everything about Bitcoin with a grain of salt. I'm very conservative, and when you see that is being propagated to the mass, like for the masses, it's on CNN and Michael Saylor is talking about it, and policymakers are embracing it in a bad way, not behind the scenes, but actually on public. They are not going there like in the case of XRP Ledger. If you read the documents, you see the IMF, you see the International Monetary Fund, the Bank of International Settlements, all praising the technology and saying, look, this is actually the green energy, fast transactions, XRP to act as a stable coin. And behind the scenes, they are telling you that Bitcoin is not the technology of the future, is not a green coin. I'm not saying I agree with the green agenda. I'm just analyzing here how they are making this behind the scenes and what they are telling the people about it. And I think ultimately, time will say, time will prove what we are saying here. And we know that most of the things we spoke in the past, especially here on the turning point, you and your brother, Versan Vandel, also you, David, the things just happens, and I think time will say that we are correct one more time.
Time will be the great equalizer, as they say, and I think the world is actually waiting for something. I mean, it's only going to take a catalyst of some big crisis to happen. And look, they're talking about the chimpanzee flu coming out. That's what I'm going to call it, and all this kind of stuff. And it's almost like the narrative's already been thrown out there as to what to kind of expect. And it just always never ceases to amaze me. We get back to this subject all the time. It just seems it's almost perfect precision timing that we start hearing about something like this, and let's get the whole wide world all riled up. You got all the various organizations around the world, like the WHO and different ones, and they're all throwing out this, and it's just like putting gasoline on a fire is what's happening. And, we know that this current financial system, this balloon has been so inflated that it is only a matter of when and they all have said it. Every economist, you got Jim Rickards, you got some serious minds out there. It is not a when, it's not an if issue. It is a when issue. And that when seems to be coming so much closer than we have ever been at it before. And when that happens, it is going to be catastrophic. It is going to be so catastrophic that they are going to come in, literally lock down the whole thing. We've all talked about, these days of darkness and all this and that. I believe they have to do it. I think they're going to have to try and shut down the ability for people to get out there and throw out, conjecture and stuff like that, because, they're not going to be able to handle the result of average everyday folks watching their lives falling to pieces, knowing that this is almost an orchestrated event. It is going to cause people to, and at that moment, I do believe they are going to come in at the height of that. And then that's when they're going to, because the people are not wanting to adopt things as it is now, but they will beg for it. I've come on this show. We've said this before. I don't think it's a matter of talking people into it. I think that they are going to want to beg for the solution. And like I oftentimes say, the same folks that lit the fire are going to be the ones that show up with the hose. And we already know the infrastructure is in place for that. And it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But most people will not discipline themselves to go through the effort of looking for it. They'll watch programs like ours, and I appreciate that. I get that. But my encouragement is to get out there, really read this stuff. You go to the Bank of International Settlements website, and you read what they have to say of how the new economy is going to actually unfold. I mean, the information's available. They're really not hiding it. Yeah, you got to dig a little bit for it, but it's there. Right? It's there. And so most people are going to be blindsided by it. And the reality of the hyping up of this new situation that's coming onto the wide world, let's see what things are like in the next 2 to 3 months and how things, you don't think that they will not go down that wide road again. I do believe they will. When this was all going on, everyone's out there banging their pots and pans and all of that. Remember all that? The entire wide world ceases to function in that the economy came to a screeching halt. No manufacturing, no distributing, no service businesses, no Nothing. I mean, nothing. And yet we see one of the biggest secular bull runs in the market that the world has ever seen. Come on. Come on. You got two clues. Let them find one another. You know what I mean?
You made a very good point, David. And actually, I do believe there's going to be a round two. I really do. We're seeing the same playbook play out with the first stages that took place with the mainstream narrative from 2020. But before I jump on that, I want to say something. We know that Bitcoin's network is really centralized because it's 11 mining pools that control the whole Bitcoin network. What I was going to add on to that is that here's the crazy thing, and it's just a unique perspective to think about. I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure, but something to think about. If all those mining areas and mining pools, the miners stopped, let's say they all stopped and sat back, said, okay, I'm not doing this for whatever reason. If the mining stopped, the price of Bitcoin would go straight to zero. But here's an interesting thing. If all the mining in the world for gold mines stopped, the price would not go down. It would go up. So it's just an interesting perspective because they're both mining, and mining was that concept was created after the same concept of gold mining, but in the digital world. So it's something to think about. But then let me pivot over to what David was saying about this narrative being shifted around the world. We're seeing the same playbook that took place in 2020. It started with an announcement, then little incidents popping up in this city, this country, and they recently declared a global emergency on this thing, okay? This is the same thing that happened in 2020. And if people fall for this, it could unfold similarly to 2020. More shutdowns, stay home. But this would be a perfect opportunity for them to say, hey, if you guys want your payments quick, that stimulus, download this digital ID or sign up for this. So you get it quick. You won't have to wait a month, a few months. It's a possibility, but that would be the perfect environment to offer that. Because if people were hurting in 2020, 2021, imagine how much more they'll be hurting now if they pull some crap like this, even more. So they'll be more desperate for a solution like that. But this will lead to even more control. It's more power consolidation, transfer of wealth. Markets may crash or have a correction. And ultimately, that will be the last signal that the biggest bull run is coming from history. It would dwarf 2020 and 2021, in my opinion. So yeah, prepare because they could play any card they want, and choose your path wisely because they're doing it again. First, we saw in Pakistan the other day, Australia, Sweden, little by little. This is what they did. It's literally a roadmap telling you that, okay, they're doing this. And somebody said to me, well, people aren't going to fall for it this time. And I said, to be honest, I don't underestimate stupidity, especially when people are hurting more than ever. I mean, they could easily, manipulate most people. And at the end of the day, the path we take on the global stage will be what the majority fall for, okay? Because we're a minority. But anyway, go ahead, David.
Well, I wouldn't underestimate stupidity. Some of the things that happened 4 years ago, you wouldn't argue that only in the movies, only in fiction, yet I saw with my own eyes, and a lot of people have a short memory of how the situation really unfolded. And I'm being very careful with my words here because there's a lot of censorship in regards to this subject, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have exactly the same scenario. And although they have many cards that they can pull to, let's say, to kickstart the new economy, to really get started with a global transformation, especially on the financial system, I agree that this is one of them that they can pull. Also, a cyber attack, or maybe the both of them together. And I have no doubts that most people, and I really come confidently here saying that I would argue that 70 to 80% of people would accept any type of transformations in the economy, and they would be subject to virtually anything. They were already in the past. So just in order to receive the paychecks, if that's what's going to take for them to get some money, well, they'll do it. And as we are moving towards a digital economy, central bank digital currencies, one of the things that I really see playing out, and I don't want to give a timeline here, I'm not sure if they will implement this straight away, but it's going to take some time, is that money is going to be programmable. That's one of the steps that they want. So money is going to come with an expiry date so that people cannot save money, because if you don't, let's say, if you don't spend your money, and this is already playing out in China, right? If you don't spend your money until, let's say, the day 28 or 30, the last day of the month, this money is actually going to expire. So it makes impossible for the average Joe to actually save money, because the money comes with an expiry date. And you would argue, but people will never accept that. Well, they accepted a lot of things in 2020. I mean, 90% of the world's population accepted virtually everything, and they went even worse because they turned against the ones that were trying to protect them. So these people were the ones that they would look bad to you because you were saying, wait a minute, are you going to blindly trust the government? Well, unfortunately, that was the reality. So a lot of people say yes, but now people are more aware. But, well, I disagree. I think that the time to get involved in this transformation is exactly now. I think now is the moment, because once utility starts to kick in for these digital assets that we always speak about, and talking here about XRPs, it's not only XRP, right? It's going to be a whole basket of currencies, including many of the tokens that we speak about. And I think your time to position yourself is now, because once the digital transformation really kicks in, I mean, that's what's going to drive utility, and that's what's going to drive price appreciation. I think there will not be a second bull run. I think there will not even be a pullback this time, because once the technologies are fully implemented, and we know that the price of an asset really comes down to the simple denominator of buyers versus sellers. So a lot of people, a lot of institutions, governments, all purchasing large sums of these digital assets so they can actually run the economies, because ultimately there is a liquidity crisis on the horizon, and XRPs, XLMs, XDCs, and all of these digital assets are here for a reason. So I think if you miss this opportunity, honestly, I don't think there will be a second bull run where you say, I'm going to wait for a pullback, because there will not be a pullback for XRPs and these digital assets, because they are going to be used for tokenization of real world assets, cross-border payments. I just came back yesterday actually, from Istanbul, from Turkey, in the Istanbul Blockchain Week. And I saw there policymakers, a lot of policymakers attending a crypto event. And it's not only about crypto, it's about the whole change of paradigm that's taking place right now. The main stage was only about tokenization of real world assets, was only about digital payments. And guess which currencies, which blockchains are well prepared to serve these needs? Well, you know the answer. And I realized that blockchain technology has been around now for 10, 15 years with the whole Bitcoin going on. And if you understand, 99% of the world's population can't even come to the basics understanding of blockchain technology. And right now we are actually evolving from blockchain technology. We are entering the sphere of tokenization of real world assets, digital payments. You can't even have a conversation about this at the most surface level with the average Joe out there. And unfortunately for the average Joe that's not seeking the knowledge, I think you have to seek it. The knowledge just doesn't hit your door and say hello. I think these people are going to be left behind, and they're going to unfortunately rely on the universal income, because I don't really see another way out with artificial intelligence taking over a lot of jobs right now. And I think we're really going on this direction.
I think you're right. I was going to say that earlier in your statement. First thing that came to my mind was the implementation of universal basic income. And once universal basic income comes, the administration of that is going to be distributed ledger technology based, you know, and it's going to be, and this is a way in which the population is satiated, from all of the, like whether it's stupidity or fear, whatever the motivation is there, they will acquiesce. Many of them will. So few people, like you say, are truly aware of the window of opportunity that has presented itself, to the retail investor with digital assets. And in fact, when you think about that, the majority of the world right now, like population wise, is not even in a position to take advantage of the opportunity that may be presented, because they either don't have access to it, they're being restricted from their financial institutions from entering in. There's all kinds of, the other type of, holds and barriers and things like that. So you have to jump through so many hoops just to get the access. So for those of us that have that, the luxury that we have had to be able to have that, and the foresight to say, okay, look, what is coming and why is it coming and how is it going to change the way in which things work with decentralized identities. That is a global type of ID. These digital IDs are not just, okay, your local, smart driver's license of that. No, it's going to carry so much information about you on there, your healthcare, your education, your, in perhaps even, your ownership of properties. Yes, your passports, your driver's license. And we're talking right now, the discussion is out there and on the table about global citizenry, because they realize that the world is so much smaller. I mean, look at, we're transcending borders right now, in this space, whole communities from people around the wide world, right? That, are interacting, communicating, and transacting financially with one another, in this digital asset space. I mean, that's certainly my experience. I mean, I have an XRP channel, but I have people from around the wide world that become members. I've coached people from all various areas, have these conversations. When on earth have we been able to be so interconnected? Not in, I can tell you, look, I'm 56 years old. And I can tell you that level didn't even exist even 10 years ago to the degree it is now. Not even close.
You don't even look that old, David.
Well,
That
yeah.
young.
I am. If I took my hat off, you'd really know. Guess I'd be gray as Casper the ghost up there. Anyhow, the fact is, the world has changed. And I do believe there's this kind of, euphoria surrounding this kind of an age of mankind where everyone is kind of like, the whole you'll own nothing by 2030, but you'll still be happy because we're going to have this egalitarian society. Everyone's going to get paid the same, all the healthcare, and on and on and on and on. I've heard the whole thing, debt reset and on and on. That goes contrary to the absolute nature of mankind. In any society on earth, you have your haves and you have your have-nots. That has been the way it is right from day one, practically. And that is how we operate with one another. Yes, it's an ideal. And boy, do I wish that that was a reality that we could all enjoy. But the truth is, it is not. And there are those who are in power that right now are wanting to set up a system to subjugate their will upon the majority of the wide world. That is an absolute fact. We're watching it happen. The infrastructure around the wide world is setting up for that. You're watching the decimation of free speech in various parts of the world right now. For so much as retweeting a tweet, you can be incarcerated for that. You can't even have silent prayer. Nope, that you can be charged with a crime for, standing there in silent prayer, doing nothing. It mind boggling. And from places that were the birthplace of liberties and things like that, when you think of the Magna Carta and all these other documents that have led to the liberties that we enjoy. And yet most folks are acquiescing and forfeiting that liberty. How? Well, they're forfeiting their free thought. They're not using critical thinking. They're getting a lot of their affirmation, right, positive or negative, through social media. the fifth estate had, I mean, the power of the fifth estate now is just mind bending in terms of like, shaping, what do they call that? They call it, uh, uh, it's almost like in social engineering. I was going to say societal engineering, social engineering. I mean, they have it to a peak, and they're even implementing AI to, facilitate that. So to me, it's not as much of they'll acquiesce out of stupidity. They'll acquiesce out of being totally, having already forfeited their critical thinking, and they're just going to go with it. They're just going to go with it. And I think that's where the majority of people are going to miss out, because that window of opportunity, like you said, Edo, is going to slam shut, and that's it. It's going to be all done. And if you're not positioned, you won't be in a position later on to get into one. And that's just the way I think it's going to go down, And I know that sounds really heavy, but if you look at the Dow over the last 100 years and where it's at, are we not ready for something cataclysmic to take place? I think we are.
I absolutely agree with you. Everything you said, 100% accurate. It's already happening. They're working on it. I mean, for God's sake, every central bank is already in development of a CBDC. They wouldn't waste all that time and resources for nothing if they didn't know it's going to get rolled out and work. Okay, so this is part of the plan. But the thing is, we're not supposed to fight the system. Use the system to your advantage, okay? Because you can only make so much of a difference. So sharing information, knowledge, taking advantage and capitalizing on the opportunities, like David said, that we have available to us. We have a competitive edge to acquire some of these assets, when a lot of times in the past you could not, unless you're an accredited investor. But we actually have an edge over major financial institutions and corporations in acquiring these, because anybody can get on the ledger or an exchange and buy them and put them in your own self custody on a hardware wallet. But I love what David said, and I know, Ido, you've talked about this many times too, and so have I, that I'll say it like this. When I have conversations with people, I say, hey, if you were living in 1990, the year, would you have bought into the stock market and the NASDAQ? And every one of them would say, yes, hell yeah, I wish I did. I really did. I wish I did. Not 1990s, 1990. So way, way before it really started taking off. Okay. And that was the early stages. And I say, well, you have that similar opportunity right now, because this is the 1990, 1990s for the digital asset blockchain space. We're literally living in the 1990s before it takes off. And I mean, really takes off. So that's my last words. Just want to say to, have a different perspective and take action.
I'll give my last words, and I would say I would just double down on that, is that, don't leave, your future in the hands of someone else's opinion. I would just say, get out there, do what you can to research it. I mean, we all know what research is. Like, YouTube's great. YouTube is great for confluence, but I don't genuinely think it's research. Go read these things. Look at the International Monetary Fund's website. Check out, the Federal Reserve or your country's central bank's website. Read what they have to say about these digital assets, about distributed ledger technology, about central bank digital currencies. Start looking like down the road, and for goodness sakes, protect yourself, because if you do get into this space, there are a lot of people out there that want to take advantage of our naivety when we entered in, and get you to put yourself in vulnerable positions where you get really, really hurt. So you want to spend time genuinely understanding it and getting down there. And then at the end of the day, if you even decide, look, I've looked it all over, it's not, I just don't think I have the gumption for it. Well, at least you've done your due diligence, and you've gone out there and researched it to the point where you were able to make a decision for yourself. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of people are acquiescing that right there. They're allowing other people to make their decisions for them, and they could very well miss out on the greatest wealth transfer that the world has ever seen. That's my take on it. That my last words.
Very aligned with what you say, David. And I think you really have to come to the point where someone else's opinion will not matter for your judgment, because I think when you are very aligned, when you are in control of your emotions, I would go even deeper when your hormones are working properly, and I already spoke about this. You just have this inner sense of intuition. And in my case, for example, tomorrow I could open my X account and I could find a tweet from David Schwartz or Brad Garlinghouse where they could say openly, please, everyone, XRP went wrong, sell your XRPs, there's something wrong with the code. I would not sell it, unless I felt it in my soul. I would not sell it. And I think if you are on Twitter and you just see some news over here, some news over there, and Monday you have an opinion, Tuesday you have another one, Friday already you are thinking to sell, Monday you want to buy a bag of XRP because someone posted something that made you feel bullish, and then Wednesday you are frustrated because there's no price action. I think you have to fix first your inner soul. You can't act out of reacting to everything that's being pushed out. You will be ending up crazy because there's so many opinions. You want to be more, let me find the right word here, centered, You want to be aligned with your intuition, and I think that plays a huge role. And sometimes just your inner sense of intuition can outperform even hours of uh, university, for example. I truly believe that, which I call them indoctrination camps, and all of the opinions of this world and all of these things. It's too many information, but I think you have to find a way to filter this information and really go with what you feel to be right, so that you can take the best decisions. And don't trust what we are saying here. Take everything with a grain of salt and do your own research. I mean, you have open the World Economic Forum, Bank of International Settlement, Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is a major player, and go see the documents, go see BRICS, go on BRICS website and search for de-dollarization via smart contracts and see what pops up. And one by one, you read these documents, and I am pretty sure you're going to make a better opinion out of your own research than trusting other people. And I came to this position because of my research, not because I trusted someone else. I open the documents myself, watch the video myself, I create the threads myself, and that gives me joy. But above that, that gives me the confidence that I am on the right investments. And nobody can change my opinion unless I, in the future, feel that I am doing something wrong. Until that, I will not change my perspective. And that's the message I want to share with you today. If you have a smartphone nowadays, you become a global citizen. So take advantage of that. Thank you, everyone. And something more you want to share?
No, just want to say thanks for all the people that are out there watching and supporting our channels. And to give a shameless plug, guys, I'll tell you what, I know that the Black Swan Capitalists, I'm sure Ito as well, myself, I know, we get out there and we try to offer as much of our expertise as we possibly can. And, we do have various coaching programs that you can be a part of. And it's about putting techniques in your hands that you can absolutely utilize to benefit yourself going forward. It's not about making decisions for you. It's about putting techniques in your hands so you can make a lot of these decisions for yourself. And I'll tell you, Judy and I, when we went through our situation this last run that revolutionized our lives, I'll tell you, we availed ourselves of various, individuals and systems so we could educate ourselves. And that's something you absolutely would want to consider as far as I'm concerned. And so I want to throw that out there. It's available. I know that Black Swan Capitalists, they definitely have that. And, folks that, watch our channel, we have that. And for probably the most minimal amount that you would think it should be when you consider the information that you're receiving. And we love you. I do. I know for sure I can say this. I want you to make it. I want you to make it. I'll tell you what, I know these guys here want you to make it too. We're sharing our thoughts, views, and opinions out here on YouTube. And that's what it is. It's our opinion. If we could talk you into it, like Ado just said, someone else could go out there and talk you out of it. You got to get out there and dig this stuff up for yourself. And that's my real wish for you, is that you're able to do that. And really, really appreciate all of you so much.
thank you everyone, and see you in the next episode of The Turning Point next Monday. Have a great evening, morning, whatever is your time zone.